Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Lost in Science. It is some champagne science on the radio, or maybe Prosecco science. It is cooler and cheaper.
Sparkling white science.
That's pretty much what we got for you. Speaking of things that go with champagne and Prosecco, I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah, shoot.
Why did the chicken cross the Pacific?
To get to the other side?
Yeah. To get to the Indian Ocean?
We'll find out. We'll answer that question.
Ooh.
The tension is already there. I warn you, this won't be as funny as the lead-in. Stu, what do you got for us?
Tragic. Well, speaking of funny, I thought I'd just do a little recap on Elon Musk's efforts to take things into space recently, and also some other people's efforts on space travel and some upcoming plans.
There was an explosion recently, wasn't there?
There was quite a large explosion, which some people are not very happy about.
Okay.
Including someone else really rich. But we'll get onto that later in the show.
Stu's not naming names.
No, he's being very careful.
Being very careful.
He doesn't want to offend the very rich.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Well, you have probably all been feeling it in the last week or so. Spring is in the air. And I am going to talk a little bit about what that means and how we measure or how we look at seasons in Australia, and maybe why we should change when spring is and when seasons are.
Right. Well, that controversial topic coming up. Yes, it is Lost in Science. And my question again for you was, why did the chicken cross the Pacific? The answer is basically so we could eat them.
Oh,
it's a boring
Chris,
So
answer.
we're talking about from Southeast Asia.
They came, yes, originally from Southeast Asia. They originated as the red jungle fowl from Southeast Asia.
Oh, those jungle fowl are pretty. They're quite pretty, aren't they?
They're quite pretty.
Yes.
They've got the species named Gallus gallus.
You love your double species names.
I remember, I did a story on that a while back. I compared it to the linguistic phenomenon of contrastive focus reduplication.
Mm.
Do you remember that one?
I don't think I was here for that one.
No, that was contrastive focus reduplication is where you explain what something is, you emphasize what something is by repeating it. So the famous example was from Seinfeld, where they go, it's tuna salad, not salad salad.
Right.
Or it's like saying, do you like him or do you like him like him? You know, you kind of emphasize.
You just repeat yourself to show.
This
is a chicken. It's a chicken.
It is the most chickeny chicken of all. Except
Which is exactly what you're doing right now. You're repeating yourself from a previous show.
Pretty much. Except that the domestic chicken is actually a subspecies, Gallus gallus domesticus. It doesn't get Gallus gallus gallus, which I thought would have been cool. Unlike, say, gorilla, which is the western gorilla. But anyway, it's been domesticated for quite a while. It's around 7,000 or so years, going by remains found in China. But there is some controversy about that, I understand. But there are now believed to be more than 19 billion chickens around the world.
I imagine that number would fluctuate fairly regularly.
It would go up and down for various reasons. And this is where you normally say with a widespread creature like this that they are found on every continent except Antarctica. Of course, they are not allowed on Antarctica. Although,
in case they escaped, presumably, I mean, I don't think chickens are going to survive very long in the cold wastes of Antarctica.
Actually, no, it is a serious issue. There have been cases where penguins catching chicken viruses
Fair enough.
Poorly disposed food scraps, it's believed.
Wow.
Are they allowed to have frozen chickens for human consumption on Antarctica?
Well, supposedly, I think the different stations have different rules. I was looking up this very question. Some of them, they're not allowed to have raw chicken at all brought in for that reason. But I found a blog post from the Australian Antarctic Division. They were boasting about their fresh eggs they get from Tasmania. And yeah, so there is some fresh chicken and fresh eggs brought in. It seems.
Maybe if your country has a certain quarantine standard, then you're allowed to.
But clearly there have been problems because, as I said, some viruses have gotten out.
Yeah, right.
Look, I also found a website called chickenquest.com, which has the quest to try and find if there is a country in the world where chickens haven't been introduced. So far it is unsuccessful.
Oh.
But
So they're looking for somewhere where there's no chickens and they can't find anywhere.
Yeah. Yes, so chickens are found everywhere. Out of interest, I've often seen what look like wild chickens in Hobart. When you go to Tasmania, you see them on the road to the airport.
What?
Well, and this is controversial. So there is a native species, the Tasmanian native hen, Tribonyx mortierii, which is more like a kind of a type of rail. So it's related to like coots and other water birds. It looks a lot like chickens. It lives near rivers. Looks a bit like a chook. But apparently there's also been a problem in Tasmania with people releasing unwanted roosters on the roadside. So I haven't been able to establish whether the airport chickens are native hens or they're rogue roosters.
Maybe all you need to do is show up there at 5 a.m. in the morning and you can hear for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'd like, if you have any Tasmanian listeners who know the answer to this conundrum, they could please contact us and enlighten us, lostinsight@gmail.com, etc., etc. Anyway, so yes, chickens are spread everywhere. It's no surprise that when humans colonised the Pacific Ocean, they also took chickens with them because, of course, the Polynesians in particular, came from Southeast Asia originally, sometime before 1000 BC or BCE, if however you want to call it, and they brought their chickens with them as a food source. And they spread westwards, so they reached Hawaii and Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island. Both of those places around about 900 AD. Everywhere they went, of course, they carried their chickens, and people have found, there have been bones found at early settlement sites in Hawaii and Rapa Nui, respectively. So yeah, there is evidence that they took chickens. The first settlers took chickens with them.
The big question is, were the wishbones broken when they found the bones? Because I wanted to know if that how far back does that go?
No, the evolution of the wishbone, the breaking of the wishbone.
This is not the question. The question that has been probably plaguing you, and that you haven't thought to ask me yet, is what about New Zealand?
What about New Zealand?
Yeah, what about New Zealand?
Because, they had the moa.
Yeah. So New Zealand also, though, was also settled quite a bit later. So it is quite a bit further south. It took a while for humans to reach New Zealand. I'm going to pronounce it badly, so apologies to our New Zealand listeners. The Maori, do my best there, reached New Zealand sometime between 1000 and 1300 AD. And the question has been, people wondered, is did they bring chickens with them when they arrived at such a time? And this question has perhaps been answered in a paper published recently in the Royal Society Open Science journal, where they carbon dated some chicken bones found at some archaeological sites on the South Island. 3 sites on the South Island of New Zealand. Yeah, so they basically wanted to find out, these are the earliest chicken bones they could find in New Zealand. They wanted to see whether they came from when the Maori arrived or not, or whether they are later. And indeed, so they dated them, and they found dates corresponding to, the median ages were about 1756, 1757, and 1840.
So by that point, there was Europeans getting to those islands.
We're getting specific here, because so the carbon dating is not 100% precise. Like, gives you an age range.
Yeah.
So they mapped out the possible ranges of the ages, and they found that they overlapped with 1773, which was the date of Captain James Cook's second expedition to New Zealand, and he was known to have brought chickens with him on that voyage, and to have given
most people referred to him as the Chicken Man.
Well, we'll get to that as well. But he did.
But did James cook them? That's the point. We need to know.
He is known to have presented them to they probably did. He presented some as gifts to Maori chiefs. And there is a record of a year later a hen's egg being found and showing that they had kind of established and were breeding there. So yeah, it makes sense that these early dates correspond to perhaps Cook's expedition, where he is, like I said, there's a record of him bringing chickens there. The younger ones, which are about 1840, may have come from sealing expeditions, it's believed. But yeah, Claire was absolutely right. There were large flightless birds, moa, on New Zealand originally, and it's believed that it's likely that there wasn't any need for chickens to be established as a source of food.
They were giant.
These are giant. They were like up to about 3.6 meters in height, 230 kilograms in weight. They had no predators other than the enormous Haast's eagle. So they were quite easy to catch if you went flying. And
wait, there was an eagle that was big enough to kill a moa.
Yes.
That's a scary eagle.
That is a scary eagle. Both the moa and the Haast's eagle were extinct by about 1445 because, yeah, the moa were easy to catch.
Oh, so they didn't...
Easy to catch and...
Slow.
They
probably delicious.
Yeah, probably.
Didn't cast those eagles in Lord of the Rings?
No, they weren't. They weren't left. Apparently, they didn't have big wingspans. So they probably didn't have to fly much because they just had to
They were only getting flightless
the
birds.
moa were easy
yeah.
to catch, yeah. The other thing it tells us there wasn't much trade probably between the Maori and the other Pacific islands prior to Cook's arrival, because otherwise you would have thought they would have gone and collected chickens and pigs and that sort of things. But as it was, they were quite grateful to receive chickens, it seems. And Claire, you talked about Captain Cook. Well, I think at school we called him Captain Chook, perhaps. And I think that's the other moral of the story, that perhaps that was an accurate name for him. But yes, so that is the story of how chickens got to New Zealand. Answer a question you've all been wanting to know for a long time, I am sure.
So you guys have heard of Elon Musk, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Inventor of the Musk stick, that's how he got his fortune.
Well, no, PayPal, I think it was.
Mr. Tesla.
Yeah, and since he made himself rich with PayPal, but then he's done
okay.
a whole bunch of other things since.
So when you pay money with PayPal, he gets skims a little bit of the top. Is that what happens?
No, I think he sold off the
yeah,
business.
he sold it.
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
but
Someone else.
you've also heard of Mark Zuckerberg, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So these are two really, really rich guys who also, in keeping with my theory, have the potential to become either superheroes or supervillains with not much tweaking.
Elon Musk is the name of a supervillain. Like
It kind of
It
sounds
is like a James Bond villain or something.
Yes.
So a couple of weeks ago, billionaire Mark Zuckerberg was just about to launch a satellite into orbit over sub-Saharan Africa. Now, sadly, it wasn't to control the weather.
No.
No.
Was it called Spacebook?
No. But he was intending to bring the wonders of Facebook and, of course, the internet in general to some of the poorest, most disconnected people in the world. So kind of more of a mind control satellite, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if you think of it that way.
Hang on. It was like a floating satellite that would allow internet connectivity to people in...
Yeah, he was going
within
to
that
make
range in
it
Africa?
cheap enough for people to afford to have satellite internet, which is not very cheap in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But it was cheaper to do that, he figured, than to put cables all over the ground and actually get...
Basically, he said, I'm going to build my own internet.
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
So to get his satellite into orbit, he gave the job to his mate, another billionaire, Elon Musk, whose SpaceX company has been one of the leaders in commercial spaceflight. So SpaceX have successfully landed reusable rockets a number of times and unsuccessfully a number of other times. And the company...
They land like bottom
They
down,
land
like,
vertically like in old
like
50s sci-fi movies.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is quite amazing to watch. Yeah, check out on YouTube if you want to see the cool old-fashioned landing SpaceX rockets. They're also talking about putting a lander on Mars in 2018. So 2 years from now, they're saying that they're going to send a vehicle to Mars. Won't have any people in it.
It'll launch pretty soon if it's going to land on Mars.
Well,
in 2018.
it'd have to go really quick if they don't launch really soon. But I think, there's some delays. The Dragon X rocket that was to launch Facebook's Amos 6 satellite exploded on the ground during a test, and the $200 million satellite was destroyed completely. So there is no Facebook satellite to be launched over Africa.
Yeah.
I think they're intending to rebuild it. But the cause of the explosion is still not clear. The rocket wasn't even taking off. It wasn't lifting off. It was just undergoing a fueling procedure. And Elon Musk has called for any footage that people might have to be sent to him so they can maybe figure out what possibly went wrong. He thinks he heard a loud bang just before the explosion, but he doesn't know what it was. Right. But it could have just been someone slamming a door. Who knows, really?
And everyone, there were no people injured.
No.
Accident.
It was all, it was all completely fine. There was no injuries. Just the entire rocket is no longer there. So despite the success, there are some setbacks for the commercial space industry, and maybe to billionaires like these guys. They seem like relatively minor expenses, like they just, dropped a 20 down the drain or something. But look, billionaires are not the only people literally shooting for the stars. The number 1 and number 2 most populous countries on Earth are accelerating their space programs currently. So China and India have made great strides in the last couple of years towards having ongoing space programs. And China plans to land taikonauts, which is what the Chinese call astronauts, on the moon by the 2030s. They successfully launched their Long March 7 rocket this year, which can carry a 13.5-ton payload. and they're testing an even bigger rocket later this year that can take a 25-ton payload. So the reason they need all this heavy lifting stuff is that it is their plan to build a space station.
Right, okay.
And they are going to use the space station as a stepping stone to get to the moon, which they intend to colonize.
Right.
So that's their plan. Is they're
Bubble
going
cities and that sort of stuff.
Well, I guess they're going.
1950s.
Yeah, they're going to the moon. They're going to colonize the moon. They don't just want to visit. They want to move in. So they're
Will they take chickens with them?
of course, they're everywhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're going to have their Tiangong 2 space lab in orbit by the end of the year with taikonauts on the space lab.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's quick. They're very quick.
Quick turnover.
So in India, as I mentioned, India have got a space program as well. They have successfully this year launched and recovered a remotely piloted test model of a reusable space shuttle, which the whole project cost only $13.3 million US dollars.
That's astonishing.
Yes, it is astonishing. So the Indians are like the cheapest space program.
Did this get into orbit, or was it?
Yeah, it was into orbit, briefly into orbit.
Right.
They launched it and brought it back down straight away because didn't want it flying around up there. So $13.3 million US dollars. That's a quarter of the cost of SpaceX's cheapest launch vehicle.
Wow.
And this is a lot easier to land because it's a plane, basically.
Yeah.
So you don't have to land at this vertical
complicated
landing
way,
thing.
yeah.
And, I was a bit sad because it does pretty much look like the US space shuttle.
The space shuttle,
It's
right?
just another space shuttle. Obviously, the design is
It-
perfectly suited
It
to
just
that task.
seems like the most reasonable way to get in and out of the atmosphere effectively via plane that goes a little bit
They
further.
didn't just buy a used space shuttle, did they?
No, because they built this. They built a model one.
okay.
This is a tiny scale model.
Right, okay.
Well, not tiny. It's like 3 or 4 cars length long, but it's not as big as one that would carry people.
Okay.
But it was fully built by them and designed by them. Obviously, they'd had some clues on
There's
how
an
to design a
inspiration
space shuttle.
going on.
But yeah, as I said, they're really good at doing things cheaply. They sent a Mars probe in 2014 to Mars for about a tenth of the cost of NASA's mission that was around about the same time.
Okay.
So NASA's mission cost $671 million. The Indian probe cost them $74 million, which, as I read in an article, is cheaper than the budget for the film Gravity.
Right, okay.
So making a movie about space costs more than actually sending a probe to Mars for the Indians. So look, it seems like we're sort of undergoing a second wave of the space race at the moment. There's commercial operators, there's national governments all trying to get into space. I don't exactly know what they think they're going to find in space because there's not a great deal of stuff out there without spending heaps of money. But I guess if you can keep doing it cheaply like this, then it'll be interesting to see how things develop in the next, say, 10 years. And, if people really can get from woe to Mars in only a couple of years, then it's pretty exciting times for space. And I just love space.
I'm Maggie Adair Pocock, and you're listening to Lost in Science on 3CR.
It's springtime again. What are some of the clear signs that you guys notice about springtime? For me, it's sometimes, birds swooping and smelling jasmine.
I start sniffling, sneezing, feeling kind of blocked in the head, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah? Pollen in the air?
Yes, yeah.
And, there's a lot of flowers blooming, which aren't necessarily the things that are causing your hay fever. Let's be clear about that.
No. Something's blooming somewhere.
Yeah.
Your nose is blooming.
Fashion festivals. Footy finals.
Footy finals, fashion festivals. Yep. These are the
signs.
These are the signs
seasonal
of
signs.
an inner
Well,
city.
also, the days are getting longer.
Yeah. And generally we talk about spring starting on a pretty arbitrary day, September the 1st, which just so happens to be the first day of the 9th month. But the idea of spring is quite different around the world. For example, anyone who has spent time in the tropics would attest to the idea that spring doesn't really exist at all there. Instead, around this time of year, you might be experiencing a build-up, followed by a wet season, followed by a dry season. And that makes a whole lot more sense than springtime and flowers and all that stuff to go along with it. So, yeah, the idea of spring changes from place to place in Australia. And, in fact, in much of the world, spring is not celebrated on September the 1st at all. It isn't until later in the month of September at the vernal equinox.
That's quite an interesting name.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
vernal equinox or the spring equinox. So just to break that word down, the equinox word, not the vernal. Vernal just means spring.
Okay.
Or relating to spring. But
Right.
equinox,
Yes.
equi, meaning equal, and nox meaning night.
Ah.
Yeah, so the equinox is when the daylight equals the night.
Right.
Yes, so you've got a day that is perfectly segmented into daylight and night. But however, the equinox isn't actually a whole day. It's actually a moment in time. And it's a moment when the Earth's axis isn't pointing towards the sun or away from the sun. It's sort of sitting perpendicular, sort of right at a right angle to the sun. And the centre of the sun crosses our equator, which means that our northern and our southern hemispheres are equally illuminated, equal day and equal night.
So it would mean
Right.
that at any latitude from the equator
Yep.
would have the same day length and night length at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it happens twice a year. It happens, you've got an autumn and an autumn equinox and a spring. However, equinox, equal day, equal night, this is not technically the case. In reality, the day of the equinox is actually longer than the night of the equinox. So I've just set this whole thing up to be equal day and night, and now I am tearing it down.
So what? What?
So, yeah, okay, so there are two reasons for this. Even though, it looks like it should be equal and, the sun is, and in space, it's all equal. However, it's pretty much just got to do with how we measure sunsets and sunrises. So the sun looks like a big disc in the sky.
Okay.
And when we talk about sunrise, we talk about it as the first bit of sun that comes up
I gotcha.
from the horizon. And the sunset is like
last
finally
bit goes
goes down
away.
is when the last bit of sun goes away.
So not the center of the sun.
So not the center of the sun, not a point of light in the middle of the sun, but we talk about it as the bits on each vertical part of the disc. So all that extra time that it takes for the disc to come up and go down adds to the day being longer. I know it's like this technicality.
Right.
Yeah, which means that
Precious seconds.
these precious seconds. Well, it can sort of be maybe minute.
Maybe minute. Wow.
Maybe minute. Also second, because the Earth's atmosphere refracts sunlight. As a result, we see daylight before the top of the sun's disk rises above the horizon. So, yeah, the equinox is not totally equal. Anyway, this year, the spring or the vernal equinox is on September 23rd at exactly 12:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just FYI. So
lunchtime.
So lunchtime.
Friday.
Just after lunch.
Yeah.
Lunchtime Friday.
Depends on you at your lunch.
So as you know, our four seasons don't really line up with the planetary systems as we're celebrating spring, 1st of September, which begs the question, should we even be talking about this 4-season model in Australia with each of these seasons being 3 months? I mean, I understand, it's quite equal. Humans love splitting things up into four quarters or four seasons,
Beatles.
four
Apostles.
elements.
Yep.
Four apostles. Exactly.
Yeah.
However, Australia's a very big place and our environments are very different. And Indigenous communities have always known that Australia's climate is more complex than a simple 4-season arrangement all around Australia. For example, in the cooling calendar, which documents the seasons around Melbourne and the Dandenong region, there's 7 seasons. So each of these is marked by the movement of the stars in the night sky, as well as changes in weather, which then coincide with life cycles of plants and animals. So you've got these 7 seasons, and then overlaid on the 7 seasons are 2 other non-annual seasons. So you've got a flood season, which is likely to occur every 28 years, and a fire season, which occurs around every 7 years. So you've got these other sort of aspects coming in. And yeah, I think it makes more sense for each of our environments in Australia to base our seasonal calendar around observations that are made in the environment, rather than just like splitting the year up into 4 equal parts. And those key environmental indicators of spring that we mentioned, it could be magpie swooping, or it could be
but then you wouldn't
fashion
know.
show.
You wouldn't know when it was going to happen until the first models appeared.
Well, maybe, in a world where the climate's going to be changing, maybe that's not such a bad thing.
Okay.
Maybe we need a more adaptable system so we can be a little bit more in tune with our local environment.
That's a good point.
Rather than just being like, oh, it's September 1, it means it's spring. Be like, oh, the models have come out, or the magpies are swooping, or, something's happening in our environment. That means it's
for agriculture,
it's a season.
it would be pretty useful to be taking environmental cues of what's flowering and things like that, rather than they would know when to plant their crops, rather than just going, oh, it's this date on the calendar, I'll just put my crops in, and maybe there's no rain on the way, or the temperature hasn't risen enough, or hasn't gone down enough, or whatever it might be. But certainly be useful for them to learn, farmers to learn how to
so then
read those
the
seasons.
Bureau of Meteorology could give you a daily season update of it's still whatever we're calling it.
Well, there's a whole field of science called phenology around that.
Right.
So, I think it's, I, for one, am advocating for a more adaptable seasons in Australia.
It's quite reasonable, your seasonable thing. Okay, and that is it for another episode of Lost in Science. Thank you, Claire, for enlightening us about the seasons and the spring, or whatever we should call it. Have you got an alternative name for what we're in now?
Sprinter. Yeah. Spring,
the Olympics
winter.
are over.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
That's
sprinter.
good. Sprinter's good. It sounds quick.
Yeah,
somehow. I don't
sprinter.
know. Yep. All right, and Stu, going into space?
My space, your space, it's everyone's space, everyone's going to space.
And a big shout out to all the chickens out there. We now know how you got to New Zealand. We're watching you. Don't go to Antarctica. Well, we are watching the chickens. Okay, Lost in Science, it is recorded in the studios of 3CR in Melbourne. It airs across Australia on the Community Radio Network with the support of the Community Broadcasting Foundation. You can please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. We're very lonely. You can email us at lostinsci@gmail.com. That's LOSTINSCI@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Facebook, where we're Lost in Science on 3CR. I believe also on Twitter as Lost in Science on 3CR, or the handle at Lost in Science 1. Because we're the best, I think, really, pretty much.
Not because the other one was taken.
No, not because the other one was taken at all. We chose it. And you can listen to us on the radio, where we will be back again this same time next week, where Stu, Claire, Manisha, and Chris will get
Lost in Science!
Thanks for listening to a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online.